Hello and welcome to week 4, day 1 video lecture. We're going to talk about building a part of your presentation. And it is an individual assignment, but it does have components in which you can discuss with your group for later, but don't hold off on completing the day 1 assignment because your group's not getting in touch with you. You should never do that. So we click on Understanding Concepts, which talks about a position statement, and it shows a little formula. The position statement can be thought of as the thesis or purpose statement for your entire presentation. What is the thing all about, and how would you go about setting up such a statement, sentence? And to do that, I've put it into a sort of formula in which you can plug in these things to create your position statement for the presentation. And I want you to do this individually so that when you and your group meet and are sewing together your presentation, you have these different statements to choose from your perspective. And maybe, David put this part, he stated it really nicely. And then Susan or whoever did this part really nicely and stated it succinctly. And you might put two statements together, or you might decide like Eduardo's statement altogether is the best out of all of us, and we're going to use his statement for the presentation. But I want you to do this individually to have the options, and so that you have practice, because you're going to have to do this, create your own position statement later for the position paper, which will require you to have this statement at the end of your introduction, and you're going to have to write it on your own. So might as well practice now. And if you were to write a position statement, that really has nothing to do with schools, but it is a good sample for utilization of that formula. It would look something like this, and use an option for consumers because it saves money and it's environmentally responsible and has great options. We can see their topic to start. We can see their stance. They believe it's a good option. Red's not a great color for that, or it doesn't denote something good. And then we see the audience. They mention consumers and their 3 reasons, right? We can see a breakdown of how you would construct your own position statement for your presentation and later for your individual position paper. Instead of starting with yes or no, which is not really the topic, I'd rather know, and think of it as a signal phrase for your position statement. What's your topic? Maybe USF, or decreasing USF funding is blah, 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 for whichever audience your group has decided to target because X, Y, and Z. It might be how your statement goes. And I've highlighted the green part, audience, because that's something to touch on again and again and again. A few of you have told me audience, you've chosen just different ones, like so those are fine for an audience. But the problem is if you have more than one, then your targeted claims are going to be different. And what you need to do is choose just one instead of having, oh, we need a couple different audiences that kind of are similar in terms of stakeholder values and what they care about. No, I just want you to choose one audience that really cares. And if you don't have an audience, or you're like, everyone's going to care about this issue, you're not thinking logically, because not everyone may be as empathetic or positively minded as you are. And then we move on from position statements to claim statements. Something else that you're going to have to practice on your own, but it's also part of turning in 4.1. So when I say draft some claim statements, essentially you're drafting statements that are based on the 3 claims you already promised in your position statement. So you already, if you're like, what do I do for this claim thing? Well, once you have your position statement, then you have part of the wording and a genesis for the 3 claim statements that you're going to draft on your own to take to your group later. Worry about that part later, because for right now, you need to draft 3 claim statements to prepare for 4.1. And we can see how, again, they align with the position statement that was already drafted. It's a topic sentence for each major section of either a presentation or a paper. An expansion of the main topic, moving into subtopics, and or if you want to call them claims for this assignment. Because moving into assignment 4.1, you're required to include the position statement that you came up with on your own. I don't want to see the entire group turn in the same position statements. You will be marked off, and maybe I'll send you an email of some sort. That sounds scary, doesn't it? But don't do it. And then I want to see only one of the claim statements that you ended up drafting. It's really good to draft 3. So again, when you go to your group, just to have that smorgasbord of ideas. But for the assignment, you need this and this to start. And then you're going to expand on it with evidence. So then we get into, you're essentially for 4.1, building a chunk of the presentation. The presentation requires claim and evidence slides, 2 to 3 slides per claim and evidence per claim thing. I'm sorry, excuse me. So as each person in the group is completing 4.1, you're completing one part of the presentation. And this has some varied directions, and we'll kind of go over that in a minute. But I want to pan back to understanding concepts that acknowledges that each team, you're going to have more than 3 people, because you might be thinking ahead to, okay, we're sewing together, we're doing one chunk of the presentation, but the presentation only requires 3 claims. That's where the other 1 or 2 people left over in the group the remaining 1 to 2 people can create opposition and refutation paragraphs. Because if you do look at the presentation guidelines, again, it does want an opposition refutation section. So then these 2 people can be working on that, and maybe you only choose to use one of them. Of course, you can use both if you want. And again, I'm not great at spelling, but these other 1 or 2 people are also contributing to the presentation. They're just doing a different part of it. And so across the groups. You're submitting 4.1 individually, but I want to see different claims and evidence. And for every group, I'm going to see 3-ish people that are focusing on claims aligned with their assigned yes or no position. And then 1 or 2 of the people in that group are going to turn in the oppositional idea to the yes or no they were already assigned, and how can they refute the opposite side. No. Later, get with your team so that you're putting all this information together in one place on your shared Google Doc for notes, or you're putting it into your annotated bibliography, Google Drive thingy, so that everyone has it and can see it and look at it and decide on things for later for the presentation. But you should always be thinking about that. I need to get it to my group. What's the easiest way? Google Doc that we already have set up. I hope you have that set up. So for the assignment and looking at it, it's telling you the first part is to do what we already discussed. You look at the formula for writing a position statement and you write one as best as you can. Do not need to get with your group on this unless you're confused about which audience you and your group decided on. You're drafting that for the assignment. The second part of the assignment is this. You wrote your own claim statement as well, or topic sentence, and then you included evidence for it that has in-text citations. You try to use source integration. That means mentioning the source name in there. If that source didn't write the article per se, and then that's when you do the quoted in for MLA or as cited in for APA. We'll see the last 2 parts of your paragraph. It's very detailed, isn't it? To include a connection. You're like, what is that? Well, go to the 4.1 reading and use Control F. I suggest that because if you're going to course modules, you're going to reading 4.1, it's really long. And an easy way to find that connection and understand what that's asking is Control F. There's still a lot of connection, but you can filter through it and see the connection you establish between the pieces of evidence defines the claim, which you explain with reasoning. So you can kind of start to understand, okay, so my connection should help the audience understand how the claims connect to my evidence. And that's the sort of sentence you need to construct for that part. And then the last part of your paragraph will be a counterclaim. So if you are one of those 3 people that are already writing for the yes position because your group was assigned that, then for this last sentence, you're going to acknowledge position, but it. If you're the 1 to 2 people who are you're already writing the oppositional piece for this, then for that very last sentence, you're going to go the opposite way. I don't know if that made sense. So for your last sentence, if you're already writing the opposition for this last sentence, you're flipping it back around to yes, acknowledging that some people do agree with it, but here's how it could be, blah, blah, blah. So, and again, if that part was confusing, then email or WhatsApp me about it. I've already got a sample paragraph set up for you here that you can plug in your citations, your articles and refutations and whatnot. I don't want to see this same paragraph. You'll be marked off for plagiarism. This is a sample to help you understand how to do that. It's a file upload that's due February 3rd at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. You have until February 6th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern to turn it in late, and every day you turn it in late is a deduction. And that is it for this day for week 4. And then if you have a question, you know how to get in touch.